I'm 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 stuck. I'm stuck. Have you had I better start recording now. Let me start my official thing over. Here we go. I'm stuck. Even in the intertwinements of the internets to do our stream tonight, there are too many twins running around right now that look exactly like each other, and one's the good twin and one's the evil twin, and they both talk about each other as the bad one, and we're basically trapped in a logic problem of figuring out which one we can believe. And we need to figure out why this is the case. Mimetic twinning. Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. One. Yeah, I am. Guys, we're here tonight to do part 2 of what happened in the debate, because I think I'm just still reeling from it. And you know, this, have you noticed, Casey, have you noticed this on the intro? Is anybody talking about anything consistent of substance or consistency? I mean, I suppose we're having an election soon, but there's, you know, pagers exploding in Lebanon. There's people walking out in space. There's cats and dogs singing. No, wait.
Cats and dogs running fast, far away.
Eat the cat, eat the cat. And
I just watched that.
Yeah, no, I'm spending a lot of time scrolling. I confess I've gotten sucked into X a lot more than
it's easy to
than
do.
I'd previously. Well, I found like, who wants to talk about, you know, scapegoats and mimetic twinning anyway when there's giant rabbits out there? Giant rabbits like the size of my dog, right?
Those Belgian bunnies.
They're huge. They're huge.
They are. They're scary looking.
There's, you know, I want to talk about the giant bunnies and the capybaras and the beavers and how many other animal things have I shared on my X tweeted, whatever it is. X is like its own evil twin of Twitter.
Right? Good point. Yeah.
The raven and the dove.
Yeah, that's right.
It really is.
Is this good? Yeah. Is this good Twitter or bad Twitter?
Well,
depends on who you ask.
I mean, there's often some discussion, right? Because Elon still is wearing that devil costume in his profile pic, right? So
yeah,
we don't know. Can we tell who's the good guy anymore?
Well, yes.
Okay, you're just
a good guy on this earth.
You're just so plain about things. It's very reassuring, because I get lost in my you know, sort of goth, tattooed, medieval. If I keep talking, you know, it always exposes everything else that I'm watching and thinking about.
Well, no, I never had a goth face, although I have a great appreciation for Morticia Addams.
So I had to go to campus yesterday to get some books on Franciscan liturgy, you know, as you do. The order, well, maybe it's actually the Roman ordinal after Innocent III that includes the feast days that the Franciscans observed. And I'm It's a fat book. I had to.
She's going somewhere with this. I just
Oh
know
yeah,
it. Go
yeah.
on.
Well, so I'm walking in, and I got some dresses and stuff, and I this dress that I bought for my one of my summer outfits from my favorite Southwestern themed women's clothier, um, is I when I got it and I put it on, and I realized that I'd sort of reproduced a sundress that I had in college.
Oh, did
This
you?
one is a better one, right? I remember that I had this green dress, and it was a kind of drop waist sort of thing, and a little bit blousy and stuff like that. And I put this one on, and I'm like, I am back in college.
Wow.
Oh, that's not the
I would do it
punchline yet.
too.
That's not the punchline yet. So I'm walking into campus, and I'm in my green dress that looks, that I could have worn when I was in college, in my Birkenstocks, which I have now, which I don't, I have had Birkenstocks in the past, but these are a new pair, and they're kind of silver and everything like that. And I've got my hippie hair, and I'm in my hippie dress, and I'm in my Birkenstocks on and stuff. And I walk past this guy who's basically my age with long hair and a beard, and I'm like, I'm not gonna smile. I'm not gonna smile. I'd be acknowledging how old I am. And then realizing I'm just like, I've twinned my younger self as the
Oh,
hippie that I clearly still am, right? It's like decades
yeah,
and decades of pretending to be able to dress in academia, and I'm just a Texas hippie still.
that's
It was
funny.
very funny. Maybe
Yeah,
you,
like a college student from the 80s. Yeah.
yeah, sort. Well, the thing is, I mean, this is the problem for those of us in academia. It's like you never actually grow up, right? You just
Well, yeah,
read
I
more
guess
in the
that
same
makes sense.
topic.
Yeah. Yeah, the same topic, the same surroundings, the same types of conversations,
Mm.
the same dress. There you
The
go.
same dress. Well, I would have felt like I was dressed up to go wear to class. This I'm obviously not wearing to teach in, because it does not feel like a professor's outfit. But
Yeah.
the sweaters and the sort of I hope this is going somewhere in our meditation on twinning.
Twinning?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I was thinking about
Mm-mm.
it this week too, because my friend Mr. Yiannopoulos,
Yes.
whom I wrote to 8 years ago about this time, when the cycles, the
Oh,
cycles of 4 years, my academic leaves, ironically enough, coincide with election years.
and Mila was speaking at the University of South Carolina.
Mm. But the first time, so 8 years ago, when I wrote to him, I said, "Dear Mr. Yiannopoulos, I teach at the University of Chicago." We were the University of Chicago that year, 2016, back when Donald Trump was running against Mrs. Clinton. See, the twinning of time
Hmm.
is really like
Yeah,
terrifying
this is
right now.
things are
The
repeating.
repet,
Things are
yeah,
repeating.
maybe that's why it's so
There's
confusing.
Milo at was it Berkeley, and then it's Milo at South University of South Carolina, and Trump is running again.
We're in
And
this time warp, this spiral.
yeah, and it seems to be a repetitive time warp. Like it happens every couple of years. It's almost like we're a stuck record,
Well, see, it's
or
because of 2020, whatever happened then, right? We get Trump again.
yes.
This is I
But I mean, I was thinking 2020, everybody remember when everybody's memory was seemed to be wiped? Like we had no concept of time for
mm-hmm.
like 3 years. Like, what year is this? I know in the Dragon Common Room we were talking about this frequently about a year ago. It's like, well, I'm sorry, what year is this? Everybody forgot. It's not an age thing. Everybody forgot because
Yeah.
everybody lost their anchoring in different seasons and different events of life and different life passage type
No
things. And
liturgy.
now,
We
yeah,
had no
it's
liturgy.
no liturgy, no mass. That was awful. Especially if you were raising a child, a Catholic child at this time, it was terrible. And
See, I
now
knew
it's
my walking to
2020.
campus to get that giant book on the 13th century liturgy was significant.
Now it's 2024, and it seems we and I noticed another really weird twinning thing. So yeah, I am like Rachel. I'm just like you. I am just addicted to reading news blips.
Right.
Sometimes in depth, but usually just short articles or paragraphs. So Israel's attacked Lebanon, and Trump is saying, Trump is well. Let's see. I'm mixing times again. So
Can we
1982.
tell the difference
Uh,
anymore?
Can you tell the
The
difference anymore?
rerun, the
Trump's,
feeling of
yeah,
reruns is astonishing.
Trump said that this is going to be over before I take office. Now Reagan said the
1979. You're
hostage
thinking 1979.
1979. Yeah. Well, he said with the hostages to get released, they got released after he won the election. And so when Trump
Yeah,
comes
right
out and
before the
says,
inauguration,
"Yep,
right?
yep," and it was quick, because he said, "I'm going to attack," and they believed him. And Trump just did the same thing. He just said the same thing. Something else similar is like, yeah, 1982, 1983. I hope one event of 1983 doesn't repeat. We sent military over to Lebanon to be peacekeepers. I don't
Mm,
even think our soldiers were armed, and they they were in Lebanon. The barracks were bombed
yeah.
because Israel was at war with, I think it was Hezbollah then too.
Wow.
So it's repeating again, you know.
It's almost like
And then I
these are
just watched,
liturgical events. It's like the
yeah,
election
it's
every 4 years. I mean, the
yeah,
accident of my academic leave being that is we are on our teaching is cycled so that every 4 years we get a quarter or two off, right? I get 2 quarters
yeah,
off, and you do half the same teaching in the third quarter that you would have. Well, anyway,
yeah,
but our schedule is on a 4 year cycle, and mine just happened to be in these. It's now been several times now on this
yeah.
election cycle, and so if you're wondering why I suddenly all have all this empty meditational time every 4 years, this is somewhat why. I'm tr-
That's when I met you,
I'm
actually. I think you were in
writing.
your,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm like 2020. I'm able to like expand out and think beyond what I'm preparing for class, and start preparing other things like we did 4 years ago, writing our first poetry. And but it is wild finding out that, okay, so Milo was back talking on campus, and he had not he'd done a couple of campus talks, the Berkeley one in September 2017, and then there was a Halloween one and then just basically no campus
yeah,
talks for 7 years.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then he was back on campus again this time, and there was a very, very great connoisseur of his talks. And this one was, I mean, it was, you guys, you've got to watch the stream. It was great. It was classic. He poured goo on a guy. Why?
Oh gosh. And the guy agreed to it too.
Oh, he was loving it. They were, and they made a mess of
He
the
was a sport.
stage.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Talk about
Yeah.
twinning and recurrence and such. But what I noticed, and I'm sure you noticed this too, when Anthony Cumia and Gavin McInnes were introducing Milo, basically, right? Cumia introduced Gavin, and Gavin, led up. They're still talking about the same topics, like
Yeah.
this sort of feeling of, oh well, we need to have free speech, and I think the crowd responded when Milo started pouring goo on people, but uh we're tired of those topics because nothing's changing. This
Well, something changed.
Oh, okay.
Well, the University of South Carolina, where he was speaking, they got raised in the free speech
Oh, that's true.
rankings to 34,
You
where they were like something crazy, like lower than that before. But they made some changes.
know where the University of Chicago is now? We were number one 8 years ago.
You were number one, and I think you're like 40 something.
43.
43. So you're the inverse of the University of South Carolina. They're 34. You're 43.
That's
so
why, that's a mirroring. I was very
isn't
very
it?
spooked by that.
There's a lot of spooky things going on, and a lot of bad spooky things going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I only have my own recent history, as long as I've been politically aware, about age 13, right? So that's going back to Reagan's era. I do wonder if there's ever been a presidential election this contentious before. And I can't think of one. I mean, on my life, no. But I mean, I kind of wish I was 200 years old. I wish I was a bit of a vampire coming up to Halloween, because then I could have all my mental faculties about me and remember all of these events and remember all of these presidential elections personally. But you've only got other people's recollections in history books, and I'm sure they're heavily edited. I'm sure they are.
Well, they're not even edited. I mean, that we're watching, this is the internet time that we're living in now is eternal and and ephemeral simultaneously. Right? It's
That's
we
right.
can
Yeah.
have this incredibly long memory because we have access to so much of the historical record. Again, people constantly thinking that history is being wiped. It's like, no, in fact, and I've said this before, but I'll keep saying it, there's more of it than you know how to deal with. You guys are not walking to that library and pulling the 3 books that well, no, 4. I found another one about magic. The books I got off the shelves and realizing I mean, it's not acres, but miles and miles of shelves, even in a
Yeah.
an ordinary research library, never mind like the world libraries. And thanks to the internet and the digitization projects, we have access to manuscripts and early printed books and like the world's knowledge. It's almost like
It's incredible.
the internet is as ephemeral as it is. Like um Foundering was complaining on his Twitter the other day about art, right? It's like the life cycle of interest in a new song is 24 hours, right? And then it's old, and we fleet on
Mhm.
to the next thing. Um, but on the
Until some kid discovers it 50 years from now and goes, "What's this? This is cool,"
yeah,
right?
but and that we're watching television shows from our childhood, which we haven't been able to see since they were reruns
Yeah.
in the
Yes. And
70s.
advertisements too. Those are fun to watch
Right. So there is this like
because,
eternal
yeah.
ephemera. It's like it cycles. The day is eternal because 24 hours is yet again, here it is. We're in this new thing again and again and again. And so it's like everything, these two things that you're describing, on the one hand, everything feeling hyper contentious.
Mhm.
Everything and on the other hand, everything feeling like it's happened over and over and over again.
Yeah. Some things are mirroring just too perfectly, right? I just wanted to add one thing about the information and the history. So, because I love stuff like they found another copy, handwritten copy. There were only a certain amount made. I don't know, 20 something, maybe it was more than that, of the Constitution, and in a drawer, and in a non-climate controlled office of an old dilapidated plantation in South Carolina last month.
Wow,
It was
that's
just
wild.
it was
So
sitting in a
somebody just had
drawer.
a copy.
Somebody had a copy. It was this family. They were a very important historical family, but I don't think they've owned that house in a long time.
Mm.
But whoever bought the house, and some of the furniture was still in it, and it was an old office desk, and it was shoved into the drawer. If you can find
That
something
I
like
just
that, you're going to
fainted
find
with
other
the
books.
the manuscript lust. The
I know. How
historian.
did it survive the
Oh, if all
humidity?
how to find something that's been yes,
I know.
that so rarely happens. People.
It's very rare, but it does happen, and yeah, you can find things at even garage sales, old books that are important, and it's not just the internet. But anyway, that's my geek moment. I'm done now.
Well, you've distracted me. All I can
I
think about
was relevant.
is the possibility of finding. So anyway, so we old ladies have fallen in love with a young man who does
You mentioned
Instagram reels, whose name unfortunately you're gonna have to look it up while I'm swooning over it.
it. I'm
But
not gonna do
uh,
that.
you could check. Come on. No, but he's the one that I saw today right before we started trying to do our writing was on history, and he's saying it's like, how do you explain to history knows, people who I hope he does it more beautifully than I can right now, but
Yes.
people who don't study history think of it just as a linear thing, this chronology, which it needs to be, because otherwise you go mad. If you don't
Yes.
have
Yeah.
the things in order, a sort of anchored event so
Exactly. You need an
that
anchoring.
you connect, because what he says, it's true that studying history, and this is our Pepe Sylvia moment, right, when it's all connecting, that studying history is actually all, it's like all of these connections, and like this thing happened, and you have to know about that thing in the past to understand this thing in the present, which then folds into, well, but that only happened because you understand. And this is, in fact, I was excited by it because it's the way we're writing our Draco Alchemicus story, right? That Act One
It is.
is pretty much in modernity. Act Two is in the Elizabethan court, and Act Three is in a market that kind of bridges the 19th and 20th centuries into the 21st
Yeah,
century.
things as you go further in, it blends.
But
It
then
tends to
Act
blend, or at
Four,
least
which we're
appear
now
to.
like starting to get glimmers of, which is the book that I found in
Mhm.
the library that's going to point to something about, like planetary magic. That Act Four is going to be in the 17th century, which has this wild, like, causation is happening this way. You say, why are we the way we are in modernity? Oh, well, there was all this stuff that happened in the 16th century, the Reformation, the British Empire, the origins of the slave trade, the magic that John Dee is involved in. Oh, well, that then projects into the Elizabethan, the Victorian era, right? And that has the steampunk and the mysticism and the industry. And then we're in this wild folding in McLuhan moment techno transformation, which all in fact goes back to the 17th century. When the alchemists are all involved in inventing modern science. We're going to get to like Newton
Inventing modern science and writing about the Middle
and
Ages.
writing
We're
about the
going
Middle
in both
Ages, which
directions.
then will all come in
Yeah.
this great, magnificent and I need to know this guy's name. You got to look it up for me while I'm effusing. That you suddenly have this moment of everything flips and it goes like four-dimensional, that we're trying to access that in the finale to our story, which is time out of time, the heavenly, the descent of the heavenly Jerusalem, which would
Mhm.
be cool.
It will be.
Well, okay, this is clearly just a, like, I can't think straight because my head's too full of things I've been seeing on the internet. I've also been listening to Tucker
Yeah.
Carlson's interviews that he's doing with the people on stage, so his live tour, right? And last night I listened to
Hmm.
both Megyn Kelly and Glenn Beck. Megyn Kelly had some really, maybe we should talk about that a little bit too, but Megyn Kelly had some very interesting things to say about Taylor Swift and idols. But Glenn Beck,
Mm.
the part that I stopped listening to because I got home from my drive, Glenn Beck was going on about we're in the end times, and it's like, I'm sorry, no, you're probably not.
I'm sorry, I gotta say, I used to listen to his radio show and he used to sell like doomsday food, preserved food. So
It's
that's a little,
always an appeal to think it's not just the
yeah,
eternal time we are going through it. In the end times means we enter into the eternal, right? The time of this linear cause and effect, which we can't figure out anymore, ends, right? And then we are in eternity, which means some other kind of experience, because time as we have it is this linear experience. But as we study history in this overlapping spider web like way, we are approximating eternity, which is also what we experience in the liturgy, which is that recurrence of the eruption of heaven into our reality called the incarnation. Wow, I just said
right.
that.
That's very good. Yes. Yeah, you're in Calvary at Mass, right? Time you're stepping outside of time, or God's entered into it. Yeah. You can't
Yes.
experience, that's the only place you can experience eternity. You can see it by looking at a timeline because you can grasp um you can grasp at that there's this uncountable, unmeasurable expanse. But that's about it. That's about as deep you can go, at least from my perspective. It's like I understand the concept, but I can't experience it because I'm physical and I have to be anchored into a specific point in time.
Right.
But
But that's the sense of the liturgy is the heaven and earth, right? And that heaven
right,
at the moment of the consecration enters, we're there in the heavenly presence. We're in the presence.
right.
And the incarnation,
That's pretty magnificent to think about.
mind blowing, right? No, it's like
It is.
I was reading Holly Ordway's book on Tolkien's faith, and he had a very deep devotion to the sacrament. He wrote to Christopher about both Christopher and Michael a lot. I don't know that we have letters to John, which is odd,
Mm,
because John's the one who became a priest. But
mm,
the sort of spending time in adoration of the sacrament, you're in the presence of the whole drama, right? The everything, all of the love stories, all of the sorrow and joy that Tolkien always is pointing to is there in the sacrament,
Mhm.
which again is actually topical to our problem tonight.
Is
Oh
it?
yes. I'm wild about how I can burble on like a fountain erupting. So I'm reading about the Franciscans because I'm working on this piece on the Franciscan devotion to Mary, and all the pieces are coming together in so many magnificent ways. But one of the images, okay, they use all of these scriptural images to talk about Mary, that she's the throne and the temple and the ark, which we've talked about before. But one that just occurred to me just then was the fountain welling up from the earth, right? And you let me start, and I'm just fountaining up with all of these things,
A font of knowledge.
which all goes together, right? It's like what we're burbling about right now, burble, burble, burble on the live stream. See what I did there? Oh my gosh. Is
You really are turning into that guy with the spokes and wheels.
which guy?
Everything's connecting. The conspiracy guy,
Oh,
everything's
the Pepe
connecting.
Sylvia guy. It is
This is your
all
head right now.
connecting. It's all connecting, right?
Yeah.
But this is I mean, we're going mad because for most people, this feeling that I am replicating for you right now by burbling, 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 burbling is chaotic, right? Or I mean, they're maybe it's not chaotic. Maybe it is actually all structured and meaningful. But for people, you're streaming through on your feed and X, you're, like you said, you're reading a headline here and a headline there and a this and a that and a
Yeah.
this and the that. And I somewhat I think people are not even they're beyond exhausted, right? It's like, show me giant rabbits, for goodness sake, right?
Give me giant
Talk about
rats
the
for
rabbit hole we've
cat
just gone
memes.
down to. Just like, show me giant
Yeah.
rabbits. None of this makes sense.
It does make sense, but you're getting so much of it that it's almost turning your brain into Swiss cheese. At least that's what it feels like for me. You know, it's like a meteor shower of information, and you just can't you can't put it all together if you're looking at it all at once. So maybe looking at the giant rabbit pictures is a good thing. Your brain just needs a break. There's an awful lot going on all at once, and it's connected to things that happened before, and it's connected to end time
Yep.
stuff, right? Going to happen sometime in some point in the future. We don't know when. If anybody tells you they know, they're lying. Christ said as much. But yeah, the internet's allowed us to look at all of this all at once, and I'm not going to say it's unhealthy. I'm going to say it's novel to us in the way we learn.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so it's kind of hard figuring out how to process all of it. Right?
Right.
It's hard for me to even express this verbally right now because as I'm doing so, I'm thinking of all the things I've seen that you're talking about that
Mm-hmm.
are taken into my brain today, and I'm trying to put it into coherent sentences, and it's hard to do. I stop. I think, what's that word I wanted right there? That's kind of like the way we're reading the internet. It's like,
We're literally
this thing,
treating you guys to our stream
right
of
there.
consciousness tonight. How do you like that? Right?
This is
The
that's the
stream of
internet though.
consciousness.
It's a stream. It's a stream. There's a reason you go like this and it goes up, there's up and down, like up
Yeah,
and down a
yeah,
stream,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this is the way your brain's taking it in too. And yeah, sometimes you need to swim against the tide backwards to find something that you were thinking about or read.
Well,
But
this massive, it's like a dream. This giant dream that we are collectively dreaming, and I mean, that's hard.
it is. It's a collection.
It's awful, right? Maybe not horrifying, because okay, so I'm going to make a specific distinction that's completely mine, but I think it is actually etymologically accurate. Something that's awful induces awe, right? And so you're just like
Right.
the 14-footer mountains in Colorado, right? Those are awful
Yeah.
because you cannot absorb them. They're so out of scale to everything that you've
They are.
ever experienced.
And if you've ever stood next to a giant glacial type mountain, I mean, like right next to it, you did get the feeling like it's going to fall on top of you.
Yeah.
You know,
So this
logically, you can't do that, and you tell yourself that, but the feeling doesn't go away.
well, I experienced it less this summer than last summer when we did the drive in Colorado. I think some of it was we were in our own car this time, and so I was used to my like
Ah,
size of
yeah,
person in car.
yeah,
Um, but that your brain is trying to make sense of the scale of the thing that you're seeing, and it
right.
just won't fit, right? It's like, that's huge, that car is too small. Oh, I'm so closer to that car. No, I'm farther. I like, it was hard driving because you didn't know how to scale how big the thing in front of you was, because you look up and it's like,
Hmm.
that's awe, right? Because there's
Yeah,
no referent for it. I mean, that's Tucker and Glenn were talking about, being under the Milky Way and the stars in Idaho, because okay, I shouldn't stream consciousness over to what they were talking about, but they're doing this comparison between the city and the countryside, and the countryside gives you
yeah.
the sense of awe. No, the city does too. I mean, although it is all human
Yeah.
scaled, there are.
It depends on the
It
city,
depends on.
right?
Chicago's pretty awesome,
Chicago is
frankly.
Chicago is awe-inspiring. It is. Its architecture is stunning. It's incredible. It's enormous. So, you're walking through these giant caverns of, because they were built well back then, intricately carved stone
Yeah.
edifices. It's really beautiful. Parts of New York City are like that too. Um, so
I love New York
Portland,
City.
Oregon is,
I'm getting tired of
yeah,
people hating on New York City. New York City, guys,
yeah.
guys, guys, you just got to keep. We're gonna keep saying a lot of things because we've learned that we say so much, you got to hear it 80 times before it will sink in. New York City is Catholic, just like Los Angeles. They're deep. It's like,
Hmm.
never mind what other
Yes.
guys did with the mythology of American gods. New York was taken over from the Dutch and named after the Duke of York, who was James II, who, when he became king, who was Catholic. That's why he didn't get to stay king, because his courtiers ran him out. I need to read more about 1688 so we can write part 4, right? But so
Mm.
New York it's York, but after the Duke of York, who was actually Catholic. So that's cool. And then
See, that is cool. I did not know that. That's good to
I
know.
only realized that it's like, talk about finding the pieces and connections, right? I'm waving my hands around a
Hmm.
lot tonight. Um, the pieces and connections that was in this book we were listening to doing our drive this summer, our road trip, and it's Neil Stephenson's Baroque cycle, right? And there's this
Ah, right.
long discussion of what happens with James II, and one of the things is the debates that they have about whether they're going to rename New Amsterdam, and they
Mm.
decide to name it New York, and he, because after him, the Duke of York, and he's Catholic. So that's like, kind of like, never mind Masons in the basement of whatever church it was in America.
There are Catholics in the basement.
National Treasure is so much fun. It's like great. Like,
It's a lot
it's a
of
lot of
fun.
fun. It's finding the
It's
secrets hidden in the dollar. Great.
Yeah,
It's actually Catholic. So that's a
yeah,
thought, right? That's why they're
right.
attacking it so hard. So's Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Antonio, New Orleans.
But
These are all Catholic
they're all
cities.
Catholic cities, and Los Angeles. This is my new Franciscan obsession. Is named after Our Lady of the Angels of the Portiuncula, which is the church that Saint Francis rebuilt, and in which he was inspired to write one of his greatest salutations to Mary. Right. So Los
Yes,
Angeles is like the chopped off part of the whole title of the city, which is Our Lady of the Angels,
yes. California's capital is Sacramento.
the sacrament.
I mean, I am waiting for the people in charge of the government there to start changing the names. And I do think it's coming. And I think there'll be a revolt from all the people of California, not just the Hispanics over this, but how can they not? They've been so virulently anti-Catholic. How can they not?
Well, but this is I'd say it's like they're attacking the places that are most charged with this
Yes.
feeling, and of
Yeah. Isn't
course,
that funny? California attracted those people too.
hmm because it had
Isn't
that
that
spiritual
interesting?
reality to the
Yeah.
land, and okay, so that's a long riff off of close parentheses Tucker and Glenn meditating on the countryside. The cities have an awfulness too, and it's awful in that sense of, we are looking for, you want the second coming, you're going to be looking at a city, frankly.
You think so?
Yes, because it's the heavenly Jerusalem. Wait, you're baiting me now. She did it. Yes. She got me. Good job. That was well done.
You heard it. You heard it from Rachel. When Christ returns, it'll be to a city.
And she
Well,
trapped me into thinking she didn't know. What a good troll you are. The next thing I know, the next time we're on
oh,
stage, you're going to be pouring goop on me or something.
oh no, no, I will not be doing that. I'm a lady.
Okay,
No.
so that's awe, right? And awe is this one kind of thing that you're wrapped out of your frame of reference. Okay. Horror is something else. And awe and awful and we do use awful and horrible as if they're the same. They're not.
Right.
Horror is when your reality suddenly is shown to be a lie of everything that you ever thought. It's typically narrative. And you experience horror when you have to, you have well, the place that I experienced it was in academia, where I thought, writing my second monograph on Our Lady and showing the way in which medieval Christians actually thought about her and suggesting that maybe they weren't kidding or wrong when they said that this was the ancient tradition, which I'm right about. And my colleagues in my department said, and I said, what? I did all the work that you, and horror, right? I can't, it's, what's funny is that was a while ago now, and I can't reproduce that feeling, which is nice. But it's like this, I think horror movies apparently deal with that kind of rupture for children, children who've experienced abuse. I guess they grow up in like horror movies or something like that. It's like some kind of, you thought your reality was one thing. That's why they always have to do with sex abuse and like Stephen King and stuff like that, right? It's just like this, the world that you thought you were living in is suddenly there's this rift and everything's wrong. And horror is that awe is kind of, you just want to lie down and look at the sky kind of thing. Horror is you don't know what's real anymore, is my definition.
That's an interesting definition. I think I would say something similar. So horror is a deformity of something that's good. So it's a deformation of good into evil, right? It's a kind old lady offering you candy and then trying to shove you in an oven, right? This is Hansel and Gretel. Or it's living in a palace. Now your stepmother, chases you away and sends a huntsman to kill you. That's Snow White. These are all horror stories.
Well, so that fits my definition, right? Because the character had been in, one kind of story, and then it suddenly shifts and you're in a different one.
Right. It's like a nightmare.
Yes.
It's like a nightmare where everything starts normal and then everything changes, gets horribly deformed and turned upside down. And
right.
Yeah, good turns to evil.
Right.
Right. It decays in front of your eyes and you can't stop it.
How horrified were you by the debate last week?
Well, I can't say I was horrified because I can't say I didn't see it coming.
Well, true, but so see how nicely we set this up of the okay. So what you all are living in, what we're living in now. This is our premise tonight. Is this chaos? And some of it's happening because of the way our information, the media, right? It's a media transformation of knowledge in the same way that in the 16th century people had to deal with printing press. And you're suddenly in this horror of truth over, the debates over the scriptures or sovereignty of kings or how to form governments. And that we're going through a similar sort of thing right now is completely expected if you're a medievalist. Guys, stick with us on the ark. It'll be okay. Right? It's terrifying, or maybe terror is something else. It's horrifying because you don't know what's true anymore, right? You're just like, it's the eternal or this ephemeral or the giant rabbits or the
that's a good point. People are afraid that something they thought was true isn't going to be true. And there's a lot of that going around, which is why there's a lot of denial going around.
Exactly. Right. So the feeling that people are having, I'm you know, I hope we've set this up well enough that you're getting this now. Um, because it's too I mean, chaos is what it is, right? There's no order there. You don't feel like things are going to happen in the way that you had previously been able to think you could expect them to, right? And that's
Right.
you know, the story, the horror of the story not suddenly turning into the thing that you didn't think it was. It's like, how and your mind is desperately certain, you know, doing the Pepe Sylvia over everything, trying to figure out
Yeah.
where the fault came, right? Why isn't it the thing that I thought was going to happen? Tucker Carlson was saying
Right.
this in the interviews. They're saying, what do you think is going to happen in the election? We're like, we have no idea, right?
No. Yeah.
The pundits aren't even trying the punditry right now. They're just saying, well, we don't trust
Yeah.
anything anymore.
It's like four-dimensional chess, and I barely, you know, skirt by with checkers. That's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just gonna like that's what it was like in 2016 when it started getting like and on online comment boards. It's like we just like checked out of it completely until like 3 years later when I when I met you on Telegram. You know, that's you brought me, you reeled me back in. But
One
you're
line
but
of
just
iambic pentameter at a time. See how
that's
healing it
right.
is?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes. Yes, yeah, you hooked me. Because you're sane, right? It's good to
I
anchor to
credit it
something
mainly with
solid.
being a medievalist and having to practice this, maybe not this horror so much as, I mean, we've mentioned this before. I've had the horror of suddenly you know, going to Europe when I was in college, packing my college outfit, right? And finding out that not everybody thought the United States were the good guys in the 1980s, right? When Reagan was president. And I
Mhm.
would, you know, there was the British socialists who were convinced that he and Thatcher, of course, were the devil
They were gonna
incarnate,
they were gonna
and
they were gonna destroy the
they were
world
going to
and
destroy the world.
yeah,
Yes, the world was going to,
nuclear
all of it,
conflagration.
about to.
Yeah, I remember.
See how irritating it is as old Gen Xers. It was like, yeah, it was going to blow up
It's like,
then.
yeah. What do we used to say? You know, just crack open a beer or smoke something and just sit back and watch it all go.
Watch the spectacle.
Because you can't do anything about it, right? Like you can't be worried. I mean, that's actually, well, somewhat of a Christian view too. It's like you can't be worrying about stuff that you have no control over. Your job is to be a good Christian,
Mm-hmm.
get to heaven and bring as many people as you can with you. There's nothing in there that says anything about politics. None of it transcends it. So
Right.
you also can't worry because you have faith, which means you have hope. Because if you don't have any hope, then you don't have any faith.
True. You've cheered me up. This is no good. We have to go back down
Good.
down into the pit.
So
No,
suppress
well,
that.
of the horror, right? We have to get to the point of understanding what happens when a society hits this level of disruption.
Have we ever? That was my original question when we started this, right? Have
Have
we?
we ever what? Have we ever had a
Have we ever?
well, well, technologically, no, right? We're in completely new situation thanks to the internet and the social media.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
It's
speed, you know, the
yeah.
speed of the communication. The telegraph, of course, electrically connected the world so that suddenly news could travel faster than physical travel.
Hmm.
Um,
I think that was pretty huge. Would you
that was
think that
very
was bigger
huge.
than the internet?
Well, this is again sort of why we plotted Drake Alchemicus the way that we did, of, you know, first in the 16th century, which is the printing press time. Although
Hmm.
we're not over focusing on the media part, but you know, the
We're
16th
not.
century has the feature of the district kinds of disruptions that they get from printing. The 19th century, of course, because of the telegraph and the trains, right? Once you get
Hmm.
railroads, things change a
Right.
great deal. We're in a, you know, in a transformation as great as those, for sure. It has different character between printing electric and the digital now. The digital creates a
Yeah.
kind of the electric transformation was it was ephemeral in the sense that you could get, I mean, you could get that news really quickly, but it didn't have the memory capacity that the internet does. So the memory
Mhm.
capacity of the internet changes a lot.
So I think that technological advances that allowed faster communication, the spaces in between them got shorter and shorter and shorter
Yeah.
as the 20th century, moved on, because you had the printing press in, what was it, the 16th century, and then you had the telegraph in the 19th
Right.
century. So that was the next great leaps, right? And so that was, so 300 years. So then you had, between the telegraph and, well, I guess the first, well, the internet was really invented in the 1960s. So,
Yeah,
but
but we're
the way people
feeling
use it now
it.
is much
The
easier.
the printing press was, the first books came out in the 1450s, and the real effects of it took 100 years. So insofar as the
Okay.
internet has been around for a bit, we're now in the last 20 years, and really in the last 8 years, it's like it
Yes.
does map onto the effects from the printing press. They took a while. It takes a while for the fullness of the change to hit, and
Yeah.
for people to go crazy. It's like people were nuts in the 1520s, utterly nuts. That they're, where they, in 1525, the peasants in Saxony have, giant revolt. Luther writes to them and says, "No, you're wrong. I didn't say you were free in those terms." Um, it takes until 1648 for the Europeans to get over the problems that came out of that transformation of society because of the both. So they
Because,
often happen together, right? The printing press, and this is in Draco Chemicus, the maritime empires, right? The expansion of
mhm,
Europe through its ships. So between the ships and the printing press, you know, Brave New World.
right. And the
And the
maps,
maps, and yeah,
right?
all of it.
Hmm.
So the internet's been around. I mean, we've been growing up with it, right? It's basically about as old as we are, you know.
It is. Yeah.
And by the 90s it was really starting to, do good stuff, right? I could do, have easier access to all this stuff that I was writing in my first book, which included a problem about the end of the world in the year 1000, which didn't happen, but neither did it in the year 2000.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
but after the year 1000, there are big changes in society, occasioned to some extent by the imagination of, oh, what did we just not live through, because nothing changed, right? The world did not end. The
Hmm.
world didn't end in 2000, but something's felt different ever since, well, 9/11. But it's like it's accelerating, but it is, uh um yeah, I mean, okay, so that, right, that's just a time scale problem, but um
So the fact that you can carry the internet in your pocket in an iPhone, I think it was another great leap
yeah.
forward. Right? Great leap forward. I am using that on purpose. I'm not sure it was all good. It's just like, because what we're talking about, your brain gets a bit scrambled by the overstimulation, right? The overabundance of information. And it's not that it's bad or misinformation, it's just too much information all at once. And how does that do to a person, and what does it do to a society?
Well, this is the problem in the 16th century of knowing who was trustworthy was huge.
Mhm.
That's, that's like the Luther, the Protestants and the Lutherans particularly see Luther as this great champion of reform, because he called out the Pope on all of his, failings. Guys, it's not a new problem. Um, and it's like, by what authority did he challenge the Pope? And politically, because he was backed up by Frederick of Saxony, he didn't get, he wasn't extradited, basically. So think about it, the similarities, like, Assange and the WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do with someone who suddenly has access to levels of information that nobody else had previously, as a single person, been able to do? What, when, Luther makes, the printing press was not new. It was created before he was born, but it's new
Hmm.
enough, and he used it so well to suddenly spread these ideas, and oh my gosh, censor them, right? The response in the 16th century was very, very similar to what we're having right now. It's like, you can't
Oh,
simply
true.
have, one, the Lutheran, I love the Luther example, because like Luther insulted people like at levels that Trump would dream of.
Yeah, he was pretty vulgar. He really was. Yeah.
He was a
And the Trump name is German too, huh?
Trump.
Something about that temperament, maybe.
Maybe. But Luther's insults, there's a whole, like, there was an app out there for a while called the Luther Insult Generator, right?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was a good
So
one.
the insults, the need for censorship, right? Everybody remembers that, oh, the Catholic Church made this giant index of forbidden books, but it's like the Protestants were doing it too. So,
Yeah.
and the polarization of, the Pope is basically the servant of Satan. Again, not new, guys. Just
No.
it's intensified now by the kind of media that we're living through, but the sort of disruption of trustworthiness, authority, institutions, tradition, social mores, it is interestingly similar.
Eerily, one might say, sometimes.
Mirroring it, in fact, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of the best book titles ever, A Distant Mirror, right? About the 13th or 14th century.
14th century, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
it was a great.
She meant that in a different way, I think. Yes. It's like,
Did she?
So she's thinking about the 14th century and all its disruptions because of the plague. It feels more like now than it did when she wrote the book. But,
okay.
Because I was reading that in 2020 and I'm like, wow, this is wild. It all is happening now in the plague and the disruption and the politicals. And it was interesting, the 14th century with the plague, war is carried on anyway, right? All these people dying from the disease and, oh no, we have to go invade the French again. if you're the English.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yes. So, okay. So we got the chaos, the insults, the horror, people beating themselves with speech balloons, right? I love this cartoon because it doesn't make any difference what they're saying, right? And it's a kind of pillow fight of balloons, of the speech balloons. But there was, we talked about this last week, and I've been borne out, and other people have noticed it too. It did not matter what they said, to a certain extent, right? It's like
no, it was all image.
It's all completely image. So Megyn Kelly talked about this. She said, or maybe, yeah, it was, I think it was, I have to remember where Memory Palace, where was I in my drive when I heard that idea? It was, okay, there. So yes, it was Megyn Kelly. That Kamala Harris was in fact coached by actors, like, Hollywood actor agency people, for her speech at the DNC. So that what we were noticing in the way she behaved in the debate last week was also the same, right? It was, it looked so, like, theatrical.
She was overacting. She was really
totally acting, right?
Yeah, she was hamming it up.
She's totally hamming. It's like the chin touch is just too much. She would never do that. She would never do that in normal. It's like, but touch your.
I know.
It's like touch your chin. Look at the camera this way. Smile that way, and it's like, I know it's acting.
And don't forget to use your hands.
I feel like I'm gonna take off and flap away tonight. I can't stop. You got to have if you're genuinely using your hands to talk, you're like me, right? They go with you. It's like a dog with his tail, right? I'm wagging my tail now because I'm so excited I can't stop.
Yeah.
I just did my Kermit impression, right? Okay, so she was acting. Was Trump acting?
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. I mean, I think I don't know him personally, but he was acting to type.
Of course, he was acting.
Which is he is a type of one. I don't think he has anybody that's comparable as a public figure. Maybe I can think of some movie references maybe that it reminded me of, but.
Okay, so he's his own character. She's doing a caricature of a stereotype of a coach thing.
She's doing I know what she's.
What?
Yeah, I said it last week. I won't say it again. No, I know what she's doing. She's doing, strong, competent Washington D.C. attorney. This is her character. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if an acting coach said, "This is your character." okay, because she is an attorney and she was Attorney General of California, and you can do this. So you're going to be a strong, independent woman, competent, confident attorney from Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Do that. Okay,
Yes.
give me that.
Yes.
Right. And that's exactly what she gave the audience, us.
Interesting. Megyn Kelly was a lawyer too before she was a
Yes.
presenter, so she would presumably recognize some of these uh, um,
Oh,
techniques.
sure. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but lawyers are acting, to persuade the audience, and lawyers are. It's like, who knows what the oldest profession is, but speaking persuasively,
Accounting.
speaking persuasively in
That's the
order to
second
get
oldest
out of a
profession.
sticky situation has got to be, up there with the, most basic human, not professions, but most basic human roles. There's another word that I wish I could like pull right now out of my my improv. That when everybody talks about, Ciceronian rhetoric was this grand, elevated, magnificent training that, yes, to be a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Cicero trained lawyers. He's literally training lawyers to make a case and persuade, the jury or however they did it in Rome,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yes.
it's forensic speaking, so it's public for the purposes of winning the goodwill of an audience, making your case, and
Yep.
and having the judgment on your side. It's all acting, and has
Yes.
been.
It is. Mm-hmm.
It's like what, everything old is new again. Everything new is old, right? Everything.
Yes.
We've been here before.
Everything's in the blender.
Don't listen to the people that tell you that everything that's happening is absolutely unprecedented. It's not. Because people are people.
No, it's not. I mean, I think I mentioned this before. I was born just 3 weeks before 1968. That was not a good year for our country domestically. There was a lot of bad things going on, and our government was overreacting. I think, in my opinion, they had curfews everywhere. You can be arrested for walking outside your door. I mean, it was bad, you know. But so when those riots first started happening in 2020, I said, well, we have seen these before. In fact, we see them about every 20 years because it happened in the early 90s too.
Amazing. If you have children, they grow up. It's generational. I mean, it's gonna, and this is when I was doing my first book and writing it in 1998, 99, 2000, on the year 1000, among other things, recognizing that apocalyptic fervor, for ebullitions, right? These bubblings up of apocalyptic fervor tend to happen every 30 years. Fancy that, right? Right. So the Gen Xers now, we've seen it, right? But the people younger, no, well, of course, because why would you? The younger people, they haven't experienced it, so they're experiencing it. They go through it. Then they'll be, 30 or 40 years from, 30 years from now, they'll be telling the young people then, we've been there. You should have been there in 2024. Right? Or whatever is going to happen now. No, no, no.
Who keeps film footage, right? But everybody's got access to the internet. Everybody's got access to video files.
Doesn't matter. I think so. I think that's actually fine, because that means we're actually human, right? And it's like you're not born uploaded with all the knowledge. You have to learn, right? And learning takes time, and that's good. And you get learned by making a lot of mistakes and being embarrassed and stuff like that. So I mean, as long as we're human, it's still gonna keep happening.
Yeah, and as long as we're human, we're fallen, and Christ hasn't returned yet. So, right.
Yeah,
he won the war. We're still fighting the battles, and we always will until he comes back.
But I mean, that's actually fine, right? It's like it's the sort of,
you like to help people avoid pain if you can, right? We try to help people avoid the same mistakes.
Who are you to say people aren't going to hurt?
I'm not saying they aren't going to. I want to stop them.
You have some drug to suggest that will comfort them, comfort them, so they don't have to go through the pain.
Don't have to go through the pain. Well, bread and circuses. maybe.
Maybe a promise of being able to learn without getting burned, without difficulty, without, I mean, embarrassment
I
is a
mean,
big
loading up my
one.
consciousness
Right.
to the
Yeah. Oh,
loading up my consciousness into a robot.
never feel the horrifying anguish of being the person who everybody's laughing at. Horrors, right?
Is there a drug that can do that?
Oh yeah. One of my alcohol apparently helps, right? Makes it all go
Hmm.
away.
Oh, yeah. And you got way more problems.
How many, I kind of think most drugs are for that. The shortcut things like drugs, right? Are, I mean,
Yeah.
and the social pain, which I'm not, certainly not denying the reality of the physical pain, which, but the opioid epidemic is not because of physical pain.
No, it's not. It's not. It's because of hopelessness.
Yes, it's because of hopelessness, but the sort of the horror of not knowing what story you're in, which we can help with that, right? Guys, we know what story we're in. It's this one.
Thank God.
Right.
Thank God,
Thank
because we know how
God.
it ends.
And so I was horrified at, apparently Glenn Beck is Mormon, so I guess he has another book that he reads too. And he was telling,
Glenn Beck was born and raised a Catholic. I just want you to know.
oh well, now he says he's Mormon, and
Now he's Mormon because his second wife is Mormon. He and his wife converted
oh,
or something.
okay, because he was
Yeah.
talking some story about Satan and Christ being chosen, whether or not they would go as the savior, and I was like, I don't know that story. I've never heard that one.
Yeah, it's because that's
Ah,
the Mormon stuff he's saying because he's still a Mormon, but he was born a Catholic. He didn't become a Mormon until he was an adult.
it's all Catholic. Everything, the truth, the truth is Catholic. Okay.
And he's from a town called, you ready for this? Marysville.
Oh yes. We'll get him. We'll get him back. We'll get Mr. Beck back.
Yeah.
I riffed off of something. I don't know what I was talking about. You said you were.
Sorry, I derailed you again.
No.
But
It's
I'm good at that.
well, it's my job to figure out where we were. Uh, so you're saying
Glenn Beck
when to
was
prevent
talking
people from having pain? It's like, no, we can't, right? That's what's interesting. Where I was going with that was saying, in fact, of course, the joyous thing is we've been given this amazing adventure to grow up into incarnationally, and that as Christians we recognize that that's an opportunity, not a punishment.
Mhm.
And maybe that takes me down a different theological path that I wasn't thinking of, but the main point being the generational cycles of this kind of fervor are going to recur as long as we keep having children. So please keep having children so we can have another one in 30 years. Because we want the young people to learn, right? That they have to go through this.
I just want a zoot suit riot. I don't want a real one.
Well, okay, so
Go back to the books.
the mystery is, and this, okay, this is the core mystery of humanity, is why do we end up in these I mean, in some senses, cycles of violence, right? I was talking about our election cycles. The election cycles are cycles of fake violence, which is why
Yes.
our, not
Rhetorical.
rhetorical
Yeah.
violence, right? So this cartoon, I was right about everything. I have lied about everything. It's like, which one's true? Right? It's a kind of,
Mhm.
there was a, now there's a logic problem about you land on Crete, and there's one Cretan that's telling the truth and one that's a liar, and they say one thing and they say they're, it's
Yeah.
like you're trying to figure out which one's true, and you can only ask one question. I never could figure out, I never know what to ask.
I still don't get that one.
That you're supposed to be
My
able
husband and son are both smarter than
logically
me. They both get it.
logically to take this and say, I can tell which one's lying by the way one of them answers. Or maybe you have, I forget what the setup is. That,
But you say, you ask one person, would he say yes or no to this question?
yes.
And somehow that's how you magically figure it out. But I still don't get it. Not as logical as I'd like to think I am.
I'm not logical at all. Yeah, if you sit me down for long enough, I can think through a syllogism. I actually do understand the problem of a syllogism. Like, you have a premise. See, syllogisms are actually tricks. You logicians, you. So just as rhetoric was meant to persuade people, largely emotionally, right? The training that Ciceronian rhetoric gives is everybody's learned to write a 5-part essay actually already knows how to do this because it's basically deep structured on a Ciceronian oration. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Anyway, but you have an introduction, you gain the goodwill of your audience. Just like get them. That's why everyone always says tell a joke, right? Warm them up, get them listening to you, but get captatio benevolentia. You have to capture their willingness to listen to you. And then, you're going to set out the facts of the case, which are what he called the narratio, right? The narration of the case, the story. So when Augustine is talking to Deogratias about how to convert people to Christianity, what Deogratias specifically wanted to know was the narration, the story that we're in, right? The case, right? He wanted to know the history of it. And that's what Augustine gives in his On Catechizing. So catechizing was telling the story that you find yourself in. Eventually the BaseCon lecture will be up and you'll know what I'm talking about if you listen to that one.
It was really good, guys. You gotta listen to it.
And then there's other parts of the oration that are, making you, they're emotional kind of manipulations, right? And the rhetoricians, this was always what they were trying to do, is get you on the side of the one that they're advocating for. They're lawyers, they're advocates. And they're trying to...
And they still do that in court today. Yeah.
Total performance. And, the facts of the case of the narratio, but the persuasion part is what to do with those, right? Now you think, okay, but logic has facts, right? That logic isn't about like manipulating people. Oh, yes, it is.
Well, you can't. Yeah.
Oh, no. It's totally about manipulating them, as I'm going off right now off of Martianus Capella's handbook on the liberal arts here. And he has this great image of what rhetoric is. And he's like his personifications of these. And logic. Logic is, she's got like under her cloak, she's got this hook, right? And a snake or something. And what you do with a syllogism is you start with the premise, right? There's no syllogism unless you have the thing that people agree to start with, the premise, right? So opening premise, and we'll say this like between Kamala and Ms. Harris and Mr. Trump. The United States is a country. I guess, is there a premise that they could each actually agree on in that definition?
That the United States is a country. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's an idea, right? So, because sometimes people argue it that way, right? So you have to...
I think yeah.
The premise has to be something that people accept to begin with, right? So there's an argumentative level in just setting up the syllogism in the first place, right? So let's say... wait, all politicians are liars. Trump is a politician, therefore Trump is a liar. Now, maybe you don't think all politicians are liars, right? That's the trick of the premise. You have to get something that starts out as something everybody agrees to. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So it doesn't need to be something that's like provable in the way we think of it as a scientific thing. It just has to be something that people will accept. Premise.
Right.
Right. So syllogism, also all politicians are liars. Trump is a politician, therefore Trump is a liar. Well, all politicians are liars. Miss Harris is a politician, therefore Miss Harris is a liar.
Right.
Right.
Except for her.
Except for her.
Except for my candidate.
So they're playing off of, you have to accept the premise first. Then the trick is in the hooking, the hook, right? Is the condition, the second one, first premise, second premise. And if they accept both of those, got them, right? All politicians are liars. Right. Oh, yeah. We all know that. All politicians are liars. Well, Miss Harris is a politician. Accept that.
Right.
Well then, Miss Harris is a liar. Gotcha. Right? And that is literally what a syllogism is for. It's to capture get them on things they've already agreed to and then reel them in.
Yeah. You take the premise to its logical conclusion.
See?
Right?
Exactly. But you have to have started with the premise that they actually agree on.
or they think they agree on.
Well, this is the kind
Yeah.
of trick, right? So as
Hmm.
formulating a premise that your audience will accept to start with is you have to be able to do that. And of course, this kind of trick premise thing that they use is so it Vox likes to talk about, logic and rhetoric as two different things, and he has to admit that Aristotle means they're both kinds of demonstrations. They're in fact both manipulative in the sense that you
This
can't have a syllogism without a premise that the audience has already accepted to begin with. So you have to have them on your side to start with at some point in the
this is the
discussion.
this is where the razzle dazzle song comes in handy.
Yes.
Right? That absolute brilliant scene from Chicago where Richard Gere is razzle dazzling them in the courtroom,
Right.
like bait and switching, the witnesses. Like you said, do you believe all politicians are liars? Yes. So Miss Harris is a liar? No, I didn't mean that. Well, you just
You
said he
just said
was
that,
for sure.
right? Okay.
Right. So he just does this over and over again.
Exactly. Okay. Now that's taken me down a path I did not expect to take, but I think it's maybe useful. Um the So the thing about the twinning that we were talking about, it's like you're not able to we're not able to resolve the pairs right now to figure out which ones that like the which one's lying. Because if we set them up this way, they're politicians. All politicians are liars. They're
Yeah.
politicians. They're both liars.
So in case of Harris and Trump, they both have very different styles of
Mm.
communicating in print,
So
right?
I've got some
Trump will
examples,
absolutely,
which unfortunately I
yeah.
can't read, but I'll have to read them out for you. This is proof that we have them.
Oh, yeah.
It's if we could put this on the big screen, we'd be able to see them. But if we do this again, we need to think. We wanted them side by side, and
Yeah.
so they look like this. But yeah, so I'll let we have 5 of these, and I'm not sure we'll work through all 5, because I'm talkative tonight. But no, so that you chose these for us to talk about. So I want you
Yeah, I
to
was
think
look
about them.
okay. You asked me to look for the
Mm.
twinning type
Yeah.
things, which is difficult to do because the way Trump communicates is it's like I said, it's a wall of text. It's very loud because he does all caps sometimes and that's to emphasize, emotion. But he also hits with a lot of facts, a lot of very
Mm.
specific things, which he can do because he was president once. So he has his own record to put up there.
She's been
Harris
vice
has never been
president for 3 years. She should have a
She's never
record.
been, well, she have a record of something, but not like his, right? Well, and maybe the fact that she doesn't have a record like his is the reason her tweets are much smaller and they're much more vague. They're much more nebulous.
Okay, so this is hilarious
But
because I set you off on this assignment. Please find things that we can talk about tonight. And you come back with these really short tweets. And now you're saying they're all like that?
all of hers are like that. Yes,
That's
the
very
only ones that weren't
interesting.
was when she was saying, "Oh, I'm going to be with my good friend Oprah," right? And
Mm.
Oprah and I are going to talk about blah 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 blah, right?
Even that
But
one's
even
not
those
very
were
long.
short.
Yeah, so
No, it's not very long. That was one of the longer ones.
and they both have blue checks, right? So they both have
Yeah,
the space if they want to write longer ones.
yeah, they do, they do. But I think she was instructed just keep it short, keep it vague,
Mm.
keep it changeable. Because when people ask you questions, you have to be able to give the answer they want to hear.
Okay,
Okay.
this is the problem of um that we're wanting to demonstrate here of how difficult it is for in this situation that we're in where the horror keeps smacking people in the face, right? So you don't know what's true, you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what story we're really in, you don't know who's you know fitting with the reality in the things that they're describing, and that
Everything Harris said, I just want to say, none of it was a lie.
that's okay. So that's an interesting way to set it up, and that we are in this terrible moment of um it's so like the 16th century if you've ever read the Protestant Catholic debates, and it's like they're furious at each other, right? They're absolutely furious at each other, obviously going to various times chopping people's heads off and burning them, and and they're arguing over things that, I mean, people don't actively argue about right now, but that
Hmm.
are sometimes. I'm trying to think of how to summarize this quickly, but the best way was Jonathan Swift in Gulliver's Travels, when he has the image of the Lilliputians fighting with their neighbors, fighting over which end of the egg to crack, right? That there's an
Right.
egg and it's the big enders and the little enders, and the image being that, whichever one you crack, you get salvation. So what difference does it make, right? Just like
Yeah.
you're a sola scriptura versus a papist mass going, you know Duke of
Yeah.
York, right? It shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And so one of the features of these kinds of like explosive moments where people get hyper tangled up in their rivalries is, historically, from a distance, it becomes really difficult to tell them apart because they look
Oh,
exactly
right.
alike.
Yes.
They're both
Yes,
fighting
Swift was a
over the end
genius.
of the egg to hit. It's an egg.
Yeah.
It's still an egg, right? So we're trying to figure out, like, most people listening to this right now probably have a side that they've picked. If we get any undecided voters, raise your hand. And you will be absolutely convinced that, because I'll go back to my previous cartoon, they're both politicians, they're both lying. Or no, one of them's right, one of them's wrong. Or which, right? And this
Yeah.
sort of, okay, so I'll give you the examples, and I'll read the examples for you, and you reflect. Okay, so the first pair you gave us is Kamala. There is so much at stake in this election, and ultimately the question before us is, what kind of country do we want to live in? The beauty of a democracy, as long as we can hold on to it, is that each of us has the power to answer that question.
Click your heels 3 times.
That's right.
There's no place like
There's no
home.
place like home. Okay.
You have the power within you. She hasn't said anything, but yeah. What she's
But you
asked the
said, you're
question and then
right.
not answered
She's
it.
saying there's no lie there.
There's no lie there. No, there's no lie. Actually, one of her tweets was a big whopper, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But yeah, most of what she's saying was it was nebulous. It wasn't a lie.
Okay, so wait. Okay. Compared with Donald Trump, Comrade Kamala will obliterate Social Security and Medicare by giving it away to the millions of illegal immigrants who are infiltrating our country! Exclamation mark. No capitals in this one.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of country do you want? Here's what kind of country is happening right now.
Yeah.
You see, he's asking the question by answering it. So the question is implied. And she just asked the question and didn't answer it. He answered the question
Without, so like, interesting.
with
So they're, but it's like
without asking
the
it.
the
Yeah.
syllogism problem is there's a fancy word for it. It's an incomplete syllogism, right? You're
Hmm.
arguing over he hasn't. So what is his premise?
Right. His premise is that the country is going to change for the worse. What kind of country do you want to live in? It was the same question that she
It's
asked.
exactly the
He's
same
saying,
premise as she's stating. You're
right.
right.
Exactly.
Identical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So everything that she said, he would agree with. There is so much
Yes.
at stake in this election, and ultimately the question before us is, what kind of country do we want to live in? He would agree.
Correct.
The premise is given. The beauty of a
Mm-hmm.
democracy, as long as we can hold on to it, is that each of us has the power to answer that question. Well, that he would agree with. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so what you're saying, she's setting a premise up that is left open.
It's left open for interpretation so that she can agree with whoever she needs to agree with when she goes to meet donors and media.
Do you think she's the only politician who does this?
No. No.
So why does it work, right? I think this is arming yourself against these rhetoricians and these logicians is one. Okay, so the people are usually talking about saying we don't. I think Auntie Kumi said this in his intro to Gavin, who's introducing Milo. It's like, we shouldn't be getting emotional about these things.
Shouldn't get him, but though that's just being human. We shouldn't get emotional about these things.
It's like, why would you care about anything if you weren't emotional about it, right?
Right.
Yeah. No,
right. Because emotion is, yeah. I mean, yeah, getting emotional. Like, gosh, yeah. Anyway.
Well, okay, so I mean,
we're not Vulcan.
Right. She is trying to create an emotion there, and so is Trump with his. And people will often be saying the reason that everything is so bad is everything's so contentious, everything's so emotional. If we should,
yeah, if you would all just agree with me, it would be fine. Do what I tell you.
You'd all just agree with me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting to the meat here. We're getting to the meat. We've allowed that Trump would probably would agree, based on the tweets that we were comparing, would agree with her premise about our country
Yes.
and democracy, and the election is about what kind of country you want to live in. So he and she actually absolutely agree on the premise.
Yep.
What do you think she would say in answer to her question about him?
I'm trying not to be snarky. You mean if he had asked the same question as she framed it? What would she say? Yes, he agrees with me on the premise.
Well, I think he would say Trump wants to destroy Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
but that is
maybe not that specifically, right? But I think she would.
I think she has said stuff like that.
She did. She said it in the debate, didn't she? Right. So they
Yeah.
both agree on the premise. They both think that the other one's going to take away the thing that apparently they assume people value, which is the Social Security and Medicare.
But she didn't define it in her tweet. She didn't define it.
What we're working on is the absolute similarity.
Okay.
And therefore this has been a big feature of my meditations for a decade now, of the twinning problem. Of if it's their guy, everything that one says is good. I mean, if it's our guy, everything that our guy says is good, and if it's their guy, everything they say is bad. But
yeah,
they're identical, right?
Yeah. Right.
So let's prove it a little bit more, and then I can do okay. So okay, so you're trying to, and what I was interested when I'm glad I asked you to find these so that we can test them this way, because I was thinking you've done a more honest test of my premise than I could.
Did I disappoint you?
No. This is excellent. Okay. Because I saw them together and I'm like, these aren't the same at all. And then of course you've thought them through and they actually are the same. And then I realized I was looking for absolute mirrorings, and you found something even better, which is the embedded mirroring in all of this, which is why people are usually, I mean, they can't see it, right? And you will have people arguing till the cows come home and or we vote that both of them are, Kamala's a liar, no, Trump's a liar, no, she hates the country, he hates the country, she wants to steal all the stuff from you, he wants to steal all the stuff from you. They're literally identical, right? Well, they're only changing the noun.
Right. There's a popular tactic right now for some conservative media on YouTube. I want to say it's Campus Reform. Campus Reform has done this, but I think some other groups have done it too. Well, where they'll take quotes from Joe Biden or from Hillary Clinton or from Kamala Harris, and they'll read it to people and say, "Trump said this. What do you think about what do you think about this?" Right? Well, that's
that sounds really good.
That's horrible.
Or no,
they said if Trump said this, that's horrible. But if they say, if they say, well, actually, Joe Biden said this, I'm like, well, obviously, I'm surprised. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really surprising. It's usually something completely racist. That was Joe Biden had said in his career.
And
And
they
yeah,
assume it's
they were
Trump,
surprised.
right? So
They
racism,
assume it's Trump.
the racism thing is the thing you attach to the bad, your enemy.
Right. Everything bad is attached to the enemy. So
Right, but
they did it with racism. They did it with other maybe smart. If you said something, particularly smart, and they go, "Oh yes, yeah, Hillary obviously said that." Well, actually, she didn't. It was. So this is these kinds of interviews have been going on for a while, but it's the same thing. It's
right.
kind of like it's like a reverse image, right? That's the kind of mirroring going on with these tweets.
Constantly.
Yeah.
The I mean, this is at the big end, little end of the egg thing for the Lilliputians.
Yes.
The Pope hates everyone and wants them all to go to hell. Martin Luther hates everyone and wants them all to go to hell. It's like, what? Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh gosh.
Well,
Yeah.
the premise being it's bad to go to hell, right? So, but
Yes.
but these systems of twinnings only work if they're actually twinned, right? You can't spin up this level of rivalry unless they're basically siblings.
Oh, sibling rivalry. Interesting concept.
Kind of biblical. All right. So, okay, here's another one to prove our point. All right, Kamala. Our campaign is fueled by optimism and our love of country. Momentum is on our side, and there's a lot of hard, joyful work to do between now and Election Day. Tune in as I join my friend Oprah to discuss the issues that matter most to working families. I mean, again, except for the like I said, the proper noun could change: Harris, Oprah, whatever.
Yeah.
But you could easily imagine Trump's. Our campaign is fueled by optimism and our love of country. Momentum is on our side, and there's a lot of hard, joyful work to do between now and Election Day. Tune in as I join my friend Tucker to discuss the issues that matter most to working families. Just change the proper noun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm thinking of style. Trump would never talk like that.
Well, then you're getting spoofed by jeans over khaki or something, right?
That's why I say when you gave me this assignment, it was actually really hard to do, and it's been a long time on it today because her tweets are so short, they are so nebulous. She doesn't say much, so you couldn't find direct mirroring, but you could find themes that were identical.
Okay, that was paired with, are you better off now than you were when I was president? Our economy is shattered. Our border has been erased. We're a nation in decline. Make the American dream affordable again. Make America safe again. Make America great again. Those have capitals.
Optimism.
See, fueled by optimism.
Yep.
Yeah. No, you did A+ on your homework. This is
Thank you.
And there's the momentum feeling. He definitely wants that with the rallies and the
yes.
People love him because she's saying joy, right? He actually
inspires it.
Certainly
does.
From our side.
Well, I've never been to a Trump rally, but I'm not blind or deaf.
Right.
If you watch these things, these people are super happy to be there. It's like a party.
Yeah,
they're really happy to be there. They're not there to like hunker down and talk strategy and get angry and what can we do. They're celebrating,
right?
Because they like the guy. They genuinely like him. It's not just he's the candidate we're going to vote for. We need to show him support. No, they genuinely like him.
Right.
That's genuine. You can see it.
Well, okay, Kamala is funny, right? Because apparently nobody liked her until yesterday, and now they love her. That transference of the adoration.
It's a miracle. Yeah.
Taylor Swift apparently. Well, this is what Megyn Kelly was saying about, we will not get distracted by this, but the reason Taylor Swift says that she's voting for Harris because of what Waltz said and did with his legislation in Minnesota. And it's like, what? She's not even saying vote for Harris because of Harris.
But she's not even from Minnesota. What is she talking about?
It's the gender affirming care for the children issue, which Megyn Kelly was eloquent on,
Rightfully,
yes.
rightfully livid.
Yes,
I'm
rightfully
sure.
livid. She said, "Screw you, Taylor Swift." So,
Yeah.
but I think the thing is, I do think I've seen my friends in, social media, in fact, seeming to be genuinely excited by Harris now, and I'm assuming that it's like they get all the feeling off of what she says, and because she's saying it, they get the right feeling. Whereas if Trump says literally the same thing, they'll hate it.
Yeah. Right. That's they're having their right. It's confirmed bias.
Well, but
Right.
this okay, so people have talked about that a lot, right? It's like you start with the bias and you hear what you want to hear, and the psychologists have
Hmm.
played all of that. It's like we're terribly illogical and we never no, this we're making a different point here. That the argument only spins up if you start with the same premise. I mean, that's one level of, I hope makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Unless they actually agreed on the premise, there'd be no argument. Actually, that's very accurate. That I
Yeah.
said it quite well. Unless they agreed on the premise at all, there would be no
Hmm.
argument, because there without agreeing on the premise, there's no syllogism to take
Right.
people through. So premise is, we love our country, and we want it to be prosperous and affordable, and we care about working families, and we're looking to election day with joy because of our community together, and and then he will take it to the premise, well, but um if you elect her, none of that happens. Right, and she'll
Right.
say
None of
if you
that
elect
happens.
him, none of that happens.
Well, she won't say none of that because she doesn't mention anything specifically, not in the tweets. This isn't the same as the this isn't the same as the debate they had, the debate, more like performance, right?
This kind of performance,
Where
this
they but
okay, so yeah,
right, they had
so
to answer specific questions.
this pair was very, I mean, these comparisons you came up with were, I do want to go through all of them because you worked hard on them.
Okay.
um uh
Well, it's okay if
That's
you don't,
okay.
but yeah, go
Part
ahead.
3 on the Girardian twinnings will be coming up after we've convinced you of how the okay, one, both the situation that we're in with this the chaos and feelings of horror and destabilization and such, and then the problem of the circumstances that we find ourselves in order to have a discussion and argument, and the twinnings
Hmm.
and stuff. Okay, so Kamala. From the courthouse to the White House, I've always fought for the people. 47 days to go. Let's do this. I mean, you're right. It's like cheerleading. I mean, it is literally cheerleading. It's go team.
Yeah.
Our team's the
Hmm.
better one. It's like, can you tell the difference? Because we got the different color jerseys on.
Yeah. It's a bit of San Francisco cheerleading
Mm.
that I heard in that tweet,
For
which is why I paired it with what I did.
Donald Trump. If you think things are expensive now, they will get 100 times worse if Kamala gets 4 years as president. Under her plan, Kamala will implement Soviet price controls, Soviet style price controls. I'm trying to emphasize the caps. She will abolish private health care and make California's ridiculous tax policies the law of the land, meaning every American will be taxed up to 80% of their income. What? If you want more cash and less tax, vote Trump. 3 exclamation points.
Right. Soviet, right? So this is for the people. I fought for the
Oh,
people.
yes, for the people.
And yes, and he mentioned Soviet. Well, her father was a Marxist economics professor, which sounds like an oxymoron, but he was,
Right.
you know.
Well,
And
it makes
she's
sense
got
to
a
be a
bit of that
Marxist
San
economics professor because Marx is an economic religion. It's
That's a good way of putting it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
salvation.
Yeah.
I mean, so this taking off my disputational hat. Well, I'm my demonstrational hat, proving all of this. Guys, Marxists. I mean, read the ABC of Communism. We can do it. We should do it. Actually, we should do an episode on that to talk about what actual Marxism is. But what I hear when they say Marxist is like, in fact, a lot of people love it, right? Not just because it's like, oh, free stuff and share it all out and stuff. The Marxists in the Soviet Union in the early 20th century had this dream of machines doing all the work.
Well, that's perfect for a girl who made her career in California, a woman then, right? Because Marxism is very popular amongst California intellectuals.
Oh, that. But they
And
literally have them said they want robots to do all the work for everybody. I mean, we've even got to the point where AI is going to fill in your term papers. Ask the AI about what Marxists wanted about machines, right? The,
yeah, I always found it interesting that robot was a Russian word too, run Soviet era.
what does it
Means
mean?
to means to work. Robot
Okay,
means to
very
work.
okay. So they want
So
workers, right? They want
yeah,
machine workers, and they want what the communists claim was once you have the machines doing all the work, everybody will be free to hang out and write poetry.
yes, poetry without struggle. That sounds like something really tempting to read.
Oh, see above in our conversation about how you only learn by suffering, or
Yeah,
you take up your cross and
struggle.
stand with Christ is the good thing, right? Like you'll learn something.
Yeah, see,
Um,
you learn through your brain learns through struggle. Yeah,
that
it
the
does.
my frustration with Trump is he thinks that the Soviet boogeyman will work on the younger people, and it won't, because they were
Well,
born after the Soviet Union fell. They
yeah,
don't.
but quite a few of their parents came here from those countries too. He may be speaking to them, not just our generation, but he may be speaking
That's
to
fair.
them,
That's fair.
especially in Florida with a
Uh,
huge Cuban population.
okay, fair. Good point. Good point. Um, he's the problem. He's not. I can say this. The campus professors have been filling people's heads with Marxism for a long time, but there's a generational problem of we grew up in the Cold War. We actually have some
Mhm.
attention to the way in which things developed under Soviet
Right.
rule, and now it's a memory for or something that the kid, like, as with World War II, that it's harder for the kids to have some imagination of that, what that means. And my parents were children during it, so some
Mm.
stories that come out of it from them, but my people of the next generation don't have that attachment to the trauma in the
Right.
same way. We're getting new trauma right now, so yay. I guess
Yeah. New
new
supply of
reasons to
trauma.
care, new supply of trauma. Keep the military industrial complex going. Okay. All right, so courthouse to the White House, fighting for the people. So we've got optimism, love of country. What kind of country do you want to live in? Optimism, fighting for the people. The
Hmm.
Congressional Black Caucus, Kamala. The Congressional Black Caucus has always had a vision for the future of our nation, a future of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not for some, but for all. Together, we are charting a new way forward. Um, what I did hear her doing this in the debate was, any of these aspirational premises, she will claim that
Yeah.
Trump is trying to stop them. Right?
Right. Yeah, she's trying to invent the premise and force it onto him.
But the thing is, I
Right.
mean, this is what's stupid about the debate. It's like he would say, I want the blacks to have prosperity and justice and freedom and
Yeah.
opportunity. And
Yeah.
that's why he,
Yeah. Whoever,
whoever sets it up, it forces the other one into saying, well, I want that too. Oh, well then, why don't
it's
you want me?
yeah.
Right?
Right. And so yeah, this is yeah, I'm not even going to go into her self-described race because it's just
Well, it works. It
that's a whole
works
nother
because the premise
story.
has been accepted about
Right. So in
race, but
2016, the NAACP, which I think was probably started by communists, if I'm not mistaken, but and they weren't black, but they did invite them on board. They were supporting Hillary Clinton,
mm,
and the Urban League was actually supporting Trump, which is another black organization that exists to help what's the word I'm looking for here? To promote the interests of Black
right,
Americans,
right.
right? But people always forget about the Urban League because the NAACP gets a lot of money and a lot of press. But so, yeah, even her premise is like, because I know this because I remember it from 8 years ago.
Right.
And I remember, oh, yeah, there's this thing called the Urban League, which almost nobody knows about anymore, right? But it's still there and it's still active. But Yeah.
Well, this
Yeah,
is
I think he's good to stay away from that as much as he can, just because, yeah, her rhetoric, she's walking around her own rhetorical device.
but
But
it's the usual thing of I care about this. Um, how's with the fake premise? Okay, so both of them care about the same things theoretically.
yes, they do.
this was her. I am enjoying the meme stuff. You know, why didn't you deal with the border crisis? I come from a middle class family.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, that's a
Those are funny.
major,
They're going around now.
major avoiding
Yeah,
the
it's the answer
question.
to everything. Yeah,
Why
I
haven't you
saw
done
some really
anything
funny
to?
ones
And
today.
so, but I mean that one was so transparent. It's like, you know,
Yeah,
the vision of the middle class is the American dream, right? It's like middle
yes.
class working families, which to European um categories sound nonsensical because the working class and the middle class are different. The bourgeoisie and the proletariat, guys, not the same.
Well, is that any different than like white collar and blue collar that used to be here? Because we used to have a
Right.
lot of blue collar jobs here,
Right. Yes, that's
right?
true. That's
It's
true.
50 years ago, you could actually understand that
And
better,
now they've
I
erased
think.
that claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because
They've erased the blue collar, and now they're trying to erase the white collar too. But
so that
that's another
robots could do all the
subject.
work. Come on. Don't we all want machines
Yeah.
doing all our work? Okay. Compare this one with the Black Caucus one for Trump. This one's a longer one, right? And you're right that he
Yeah.
actually uses
Because
the
yes,
uses the space. Okay.
he does.
Happy Labor Day. Labor Day. To all our American workers who represent the shining example of hard work and ingenuity. Under Comrade Kamala Harris, all Americans are suffering during this holiday weekend. High gas prices, transportation costs are up, and grocery prices are through the roof. We can't keep living under this weak and failed leadership. In my first term, we achieved major successes to protect American workers by negotiating free and fair trade deals, passing the USMCA, US Mexico Canada. No, that's what it means, US Mexico Canada. And
Yes.
giving businesses and their workers the tools to thrive. We also invested heavily in education and job training programs for those who wish to expand upon their abilities and be successful in an industry that they love. We were an economic powerhouse, all because of the American worker. But Kamala and Biden have undone all of that. When I return to the White House, we will continue upon our successes by creating an environment that ensures all workers and businesses have the opportunity to prosper and achieve their American dream. We will make America great again.
They're both saying the same thing.
Basically,
He's saying
yes.
it with a lot of detail and substance, and she's saying it slightly different. It's the same thing, kind of, but slightly, because
he
the
wants black people to
implication
have jobs too, right? So
in her tweet is that he doesn't,
right, exactly. Well, and he
right?
says
Which is
overtly he
dishonest
doesn't think she
fundamentally.
wants to, he's saying she doesn't want you to have a job. And she's saying he doesn't want you to have a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just for some people, but for all people. It's like, who said just for some people? I mean, it's just silly on his face. But again, they're slightly mirroring each other,
Right.
right?
Well, the sum
They're
all
both
game is
talking
so
about labor.
tedious. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
women
Well, it's the
are
congressional.
nuts. Well, some women are nuts. Oh no, sorry, all of us are.
Well, it was the yeah. I'm sorry. Was that I'm Mike? Is this one from the Congressional Black Caucus, or was that the previous one?
Which one? The some women are nuts?
No, the one. No, the one you just read. Sorry.
The long one I just read is going with the Black Caucus.
Right. So that right there is like you're talking about some, not all, which is weird. The weird part on hers right now, the funny part, funny part in his was he's saying Happy Labor Day, which is fine. He's a politician, but I think it's a commie holiday.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Yes. No, that's funny.
That's kind of ironic.
Well, okay, so deep embedded in this is capitalism, communism are twins too, of the same kind,
Yeah, they
right?
are.
They both arise out of the Industrial Revolution.
And I suspect there are some old families that are benefiting from both still.
Oh, for sure. But the thing is that
Financially benefiting.
the history lesson, guys, the spider that just flipped on its side thanks to the nice young Australian man's image, is communism and capitalism are another of these twins, right? They drive each other in their both promise and the demonization and the promise is perfectly paralleled, right? That capitalism promises. I mean, from the 19th century, you have people like Thomas Carlyle. Marx is reading both Adam Smith and Thomas Carlyle, and Carlyle's reading Adam Smith. They're all reading each other, and it's fascinating that you end up with these oppositional enemies who, in fact, with their premises, agree on the same things. People should live comfortable lives. That, the capitalists in the mid 19th century, the economic liberals that are writing for The Economist and doing little articles about the Crystal Palace and how cool it is, that all this industry, they're all about how these the Crystal Palace 1851 London Exposition is going to, everybody's going to live in glass houses, which in high rises people kind of do, and they're all going to be comfortable at this new comfort level, right? And of course,
So, but who defines comfort?
well, comfort is
Still
a
vague.
kind of new. Yes, it is a kind of new term that they get really attached to in the 19th century, that we all want to be comfortable, right? But the communists will say, well, you should be comfortable. Those bad people are stealing it from you. You get to be comfortable too. It's still the same premise. Like, human beings need to live.
Hey, that sounds familiar.
Human beings need to live in, decent accommodations and have food and stuff. So, the sides end up promising that they'll be able to give it, but it's under the same conditions. Okay, she has another one. She did her homework very well.
I did.
Okay.
I take my homework seriously.
A+. Okay. Kamala. This visually. Oh, I should have been advancing these. Sorry, I got too carried away with my. You guys look at the visual difference between Kamala's and Trump's, and this is the last one that I'm doing here. Okay. And you see hers is like this, and his is a whole paragraph.
Yeah.
And we have one last one that's a more direct comparison too, but this is the twinning of the rhetoric. Okay, Kamala, as president, I will create an opportunity economy that invests in hardworking Americans, new families, our seniors, and small businesses who deserve a break with a lower cost of living. I mean, literally, he would say that he's going to do the same thing, but he says it in more detail. Right? Okay. So, opportunity, right?
Opportunity, yeah.
Okay.
He's talking about illegal immigration in this one, right?
That's the next one. Or the murders are in the next one. Okay. Okay, so this is against opportunity economy. Right. Donald Trump. The rhetoric lies as exemplified by the false statements made by Comrade Kamala Harris during the rigged and highly partisan ABC debate, and all of the ridiculous lawsuits specifically designed to inflict damage on Joe's, then Kamala's political opponent, me, has taken politics in our country to a whole new level of hatred, abuse, and distrust. Because of this communist left rhetoric, the bullets are flying and will only get worse. Allowing millions of people from places unknown to invade and take over our country is an unpardonable sin. You're right, it did get into this. Okay, and the rest of this is in all caps. Our borders must be closed, and the terrorists, criminals, and mentally insane immediately removed from American cities and towns, deported back to their countries of origin. We want people to come into our country, but they must love our nation and come in legally and through a system of merit. The world is laughing at us as fools. They are stealing our jobs and our wealth. We cannot let them laugh any longer. Make America great again. There's so much packed in there.
So much. There's a lot of packed in there. What struck me about this one was Kamala said, new families. That's a very vague phrase right there. What she really meant was immigrant families. She didn't say whether they're legal or not. I think the Democrats prefer the illegal kind because they can bring them over quickly and by the millions and immediately get them to vote, which is what they're trying to do.
Right.
Right. And then Trump mentions this, but it's very much a hair is on fire. It's an emergency. Stop this right now. He's not wrong. Right.
Right.
But they are talking about the same thing. At the basis is helping families get by and do better.
Right.
Both of them in this one.
Right.
That one was harder to do. But yeah, they snuck that little one in and thought I wouldn't recognize it. And I did.
I've trained you well. Look for the mirror.
Yep, it's there.
Yep. Yep. And so, but I mean, it's interesting because of course guys, pay attention to this, because she will say something, you will not disagree with her. In fact, I mean, the new family said, you're right, that's vague enough. I was thinking babies, right? That'd be great, babies.
New Americans is what she meant.
Yeah, but she said new families.
Yeah. Yes, she did.
Right. So,
because who could deport a family? You heartless bastard.
Right.
That's the implication in that.
And the political, so understand that the political game, to a certain degree, absolutely has to be played on these terms. They have to start with premises that they both accept. That means like
so yeah. So far, so they have.
And
yeah,
they have
and
every
the examples
time.
You
and you did not know that was the assignment, right? I just told you find mirror stuff. You did.
You did. You said find mirror stuff. Yes.
And you did.
That's all you told me.
And right. And that was it, right? That's all she knew, right? And that what we're proving is why this is so powerful, right? That you're caught in that agreement from the start, right? You've already agreed on something. Now you're caught.
Yeah. Now you've been got.
Dialectic as this, is actually just as manipulative as rhetoric. Next.
This was the big whopper.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, the dialectic is just as manipulative as the rhetoric, and it sneaks in on you because of that premised agreement at the outset. So your emotional response to it is, I mean, you can feel emotional response because you've been tricked into agreeing to something because you accepted the premise. They said in the next thing, and then you're hooked and you're in there. But you had to agree on the thing at the beginning. So the rivalries only spin up in this twinning situation when there's something that they both want.
Yes.
And that's really, really, really important. That's the fancy term that René Girard calls mimetic desire. Oh, I'm so proud of myself getting there. Does that make sense now? Because it's like, so Milo was talking about it briefly, and it's I think people can get it to a certain extent, but mimetic desire is sharing the premise. I'm really super proud of myself right now. Mimetic desire, sharing the premise, which means that's why you can have all of these things, these historical twinnings that, for generations can spin people up, right? The Crusades, right? The 30 Years War, dare we say World War II, right? And there will be at some point an embedded premise that they're both starting off of, and what Girard wanted to explain was rivalry spin up because you're both desiring the same thing. Now, I think we're going to have to leave you in suspense to unpack all of that next time. But this is the real problem is, you're not going to be in one of these competitions unless you actually have something powerful that you already both want. Now, unfortunately, the politicians want your money and you want your country. Those are different.
Yeah.
But these people, both of them, want your magic support through votes and stuff, which again, I think we're gonna have to hold this thought and come back to it next week. This is good. I know what we're going to talk about next week. It's more of this. Great. I'm working on this Franciscan thing. I don't have to rethink what we're talking about. The whiplash of changing topics from week to week is killing me. So the shared premise is what enables the spinning up of the rivalries. And I think so. World War One, I've been thinking about that. Right, the shared premise on that is empire, right? Which is why you have all of those empires in competition in World War One. You have.
I think part of, yeah,
Go
well,
ahead.
part of World War One was remaking the world
Mm-hmm.
in the image of people like Woodrow Wilson wanted, who created the League of Nations. They wanted to get rid of monarchy, and they largely succeeded. A new world order.
Well, so I mean, I mean, World War One is to a certain extent a competition of the four empires. Germany isn't really up there yet, but Germany as Germany is actually an empire because there hadn't been a Germany before 1871. So
Yeah.
it's kind of imperial within its own claim of being a nation. And then the British Empire, obviously spanning the world, the Ottoman Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and all of those, it's like the only one that comes out of World War One intact is the British Empire, and it collapses after World War Two.
Yeah.
So it would be, long form analysis to go through these different historical rivalries and see how they've been generated by this twinning. But we need you guys to see the twinning first, otherwise none of this makes like
Yeah, and it's
really,
it's real hard to see.
It's hard to see because you're so,
because
go ahead.
Because the examples we pulled up, the premise is the same in every single one, including the one she's about to read, but they're sufficiently different enough that you don't notice it.
Exactly. Or you're sufficiently within the system that you have picked a side.
Right. In which case, would you even be paying that close of attention? Right.
Well,
most people have already decided.
So these things happen at this. I think we need to keep thinking about it. What Gerard talks about is like just an example of desire, like a woman. They're two men that love the same woman will become more and more like each other in their rivalry. So you think about the Iliad is like driven by Paris and Menelaus trying to get Helen. And the Greeks and the Trojans look basically identical, right? They're pottery, they're all looking the same, right? So the rivalry is the thing that's, and there's completely opposite sides, right? But they're actually only opposite sides because they're looking at the same thing that they both want.
Right.
Okay, so this one's harder. We'll go to the next one. Whoops, no, I just gave away my punchline. Oh dear. Okay. Anyway, so here we are back at this one's a longer one on Kamala's part with a LifeSite News
at the bottom
is
fact checker.
Okay. This one's a longer one and she got fact checked. This is why she's vague in all the other ones, because she said something
that's right,
detailed, she's wrong. Liar, politician. Okay. Kamala. A young mother from Georgia should be alive today, raising her son and pursuing her dream of attending nursing school. This is exactly what we feared when Roe v. Wade was struck down. In more than 20 states, Trump abortion bans prevent doctors from providing basic medical care. Follow-on tweet. Women are bleeding out in parking lots, turned away from emergency rooms, losing their ability to ever have children again. Survivors of rape and incest are being told they cannot make decisions about what happens next to their bodies. And now women are dying. These are the consequences of Donald Trump's actions. Oh, she's lying, of course.
Yeah, she is lying. Yeah.
The unpacking of those lies, right? But okay, premise in there.
Premise in there, I want to protect women's lives.
Yeah.
Women's lives are in danger. Specifically, women's lives are in danger in the state of Georgia, which is in play. Right.
Is your example from Trump's retweet also Georgia?
No, that isn't, but there was an example from Georgia, which I didn't have enough time to find, where a nurse was similarly killed by an illegal alien.
Nurse. Okay. But this one's okay. So this one's
a different one.
Retweet by Trump, but from Trump War Room. 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare was viciously murdered by 2 illegal aliens released into our country by Kamala Harris just 2 months prior. She would be alive today if Kamala had done her job, listen to her family's gut-wrenching story.
Right. She should be alive today. This little girl. She should be alive today, this mother with a young son. So the premise is the exact same, right? I wish I had found the Georgia one. I just didn't have time to scroll through and find it. But yeah, there was a nurse that was also murdered by an illegal alien in Georgia. And she had thousands of people coming to her funeral. And I think Trump might have actually been at the funeral too. He might have been invited. But the premise is the same. And I think Harris, like you said, they don't let her tweet much. I don't think she's tweeting any of this out. I think her people are, right? But every time she's said something substantive to say, like she would definitely, this is the hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to mention an actual specific issue. It was abortion, right? So she thought she had him on this one. And the LifeSite News fact checker said, no, she took an abortion pill and died. That's going to happen a lot.
Whoa.
Because people don't realize that you need follow-up in a hospital with this. She went too late, right? She didn't know because they're
bleeding out because they're taking the pills and they don't actually understand how horrific. And they think,
that's all I have to do.
No, it's a horrific experience to have to miscarry by yourself in your bathroom and bleed out.
And
it's
so,
the pill that you took that did that to you.
Right. It's the pill that she took and she didn't know. You can get them through the mail now. Thank you, Planned Parenthood. Anyway, so the basic premise is still the same. A woman's dead. We want to protect women.
Right.
A little girl's dead. We want to protect little girls, right? It's the same premise. Now, the reason they had to tweet that out and she got fact checked was because there are so many people being raped and murdered by these illegal aliens. I think there's more than two. It's happening all over the place, but that was one particularly heinous one that happened in Texas not that long ago. Right. 11 or 12-year-old little girl. But so they had to twin somehow to say, yeah, we care about girls' lives too.
Oh yes, and I've noticed that that's always
why they had to do that.
It's the way they play. I mean, again, dialectic is just as manipulative as rhetoric. Because you're going to be trapped in that premise to start with. And that's why you end up feeling trapped. It's like, wait a minute, I didn't agree to that. It's like, well, you did accept the startup premises. It's why someone gets raped should be protected. Yes. Right. Yeah. And that's that particular premise trap is one that people then end up,
and in addition, like I think
being drawn into then you actually agree on choice, right? And it's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, but you accepted the premise. You started there,
right?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So this is in Georgia. So Georgia is one of the important states that anybody running for president needs to win, right? So there was another case, a similar case in Georgia with a nurse that was murdered. I think she was raped and murdered too. I'm not sure about that, but she was definitely murdered. But this case that Kamala Harris brought up in her tweet was about Georgia, something that happened in Georgia. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important too. That's just an additional layering, mirror layering there. But more importantly, it was the issue itself was these people are dead. This person's dead. This person's dead. There's your mirror, right?
Right.
Very different circumstances.
But you're right that the emotional premise, with the emotionally charged premise for both of them is the same.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So now this. If you have studied our twinning exercise here and you now understand the problem of these mimetic pairs, I think this is my bet. If we I don't know. See, this is the thing. If we did like a 1-minute takeaway, Mel's watching. The cool thing that I figured out how to explain is, these mimetic desires are driven by someone accepting the same premise. Yeah, that's hard to tweet.
It is.
Because you're unpacking this whole system of, and the twinning ends up, and you guys have seen these before that I've done, the good, bad, good pairings, right? Mm-hmm. Demon, savior, demon. And they're both trying to say, he's the demon and I'm the savior, she says. And he says, I'm the savior, she's the demon. and the terms are
Right.
exactly mirrored. And
Mm-hmm.
it's as ferocious and vicious as it is because they're actually mirror images of each other, and one sees the demon and one sees the angel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What glasses are you wearing?
Yeah. So now that we've explained the problem, we're going to drop you right there and say, well, to be continued. No, I was
Oh.
checking to make sure there was no living questions from the chat. They're on a bit of a delay, so obviously, all at once is what eternity is. Felix, yes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Mel is our best commentator on unauthorized. Well, she's the only other one there other than me. I'm happy to see everyone watching on YouTube. I'm pleased that we're making this available on YouTube now. But if you want to support our work, please subscribe to unauthorized. Um, Mel. Oh, yes. So, right, when I was saying Trump is actually an actor, he's a professional reality TV star. He's trained, right? And
Yeah, he has a lot of
to a
experience
certain
in front of
extent,
the camera.
even we are now trained to be in front of a camera, right? So the degree to which, reality fiction, fiction reality, we're kind of in it, right? And that I'd say, I hadn't thought of that before. Why are these mimetic rivalries going to spin up in the internet in the way that they do? I've not seen anybody answer that particularly. Like, if the medium is the message, why in this medium do these rivalries play the way they do? Because they're very, very powerful. We're clearly caught in them, and everybody's. I mean, I think people are fatigued and looking at the giant rabbit hole on X now, and I certainly was. Instead of trying to break out of these, because you don't know how to get out of these pairs. And
Mm.
this I will say at the end, this is in fact why there's all of this reflexive, no violence, no violence, no violence, no violence, because what is the way out of these pairs?
Mm.
We will leave you mulling on that for the next week, right?
Okay.
I don't know. Come on. If it's a true philosophical insight, shouldn't it take a little while to unpack, and then you can just say
No, everything's
mimetic
instantaneous
pairs,
now.
and it
This is
snaps and you get it, right? Right. But
yeah. But yeah, what do you do with the information? Okay, you recognize there's mimetic pairing going on. Now what?
now what? To be continued. So please, subscribe to our newsletter so that you catch, all the footnotes and extra stuff that we say that will help you understand what we're talking about here. Check out the Telegram feed for Fencing Barrett Prayer. I put a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about now here there. Also, I'm more active on X right now, so you can find some of the stuff that I'm talking about that I've retweeted there.
Mhm.
Like and subscribe. Unauthorized, you should be able to subscribe again. So please, if you have the desire to give us a tip and help us with our artists and our work in the Dragon Common Room, be very greatly appreciative. And
Yes, we have a mild addiction to paying illustrators really good ones, artists.
because we don't want to use
Please
the
support our
robot
addiction.
to make our
We don't
pictures
we
for
don't
our
want to use the
our
robot.
human art. Yes, we want a human artist, and she's doing amazing work. We
Yes.
are so close to
Mhm.
getting Act 2 ready to publish. It's a few more months, but it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. Okay, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week for What Do You Do with These Rivalries? Good night.